Hi and welcome to this week's Three Legs Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Dan.
Chris.
Sean.
Sean.
First time.
First time for Sean.
Hello, Sean.
Hello. I'm slightly surprised to find myself here. It's new for me, but I'm very excited to have been invited to join you tonight to make the numbers up with Lee off doing whatever it is Lee is doing.
Well, we don't want to know what Lee's doing right now.
No,
Yeah.
I can tell you what Lee's doing. He is away being a massive bassist.
Yes, he
Oh,
is.
dear.
He's at a bass guitar convention,
Yeah.
trying to improve his street cred.
Yeah, he wants to write the new theme tune for NASCAR because he loves NASCAR so much.
And he's been learning to turn left better.
Yes.
Wasn't he going for tea with Eddie Jordan as well?
Yeah, because they're great friends.
Swapping
Yeah.
fashion advice, maybe?
You know, just as Eddie was on his way back through Europe from the Grand Prix at the weekend.
They just might like to meet up for a hug every now and again.
Yeah, well, they are best friends, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought they were. Right, oh God, breaking the microphone already. We've got a big notebook tonight. You said there's a complete different location, completely different notebook, completely different lineup.
Yes. But running order is still there.
The running order is still there, but you've had more room to write it this week.
Which means it's bigger so you can see what I've written.
Yeah, I don't need my glasses, which I can't actually
well,
see,
really,
which
'cause-
is just as well because if you can see, I'm kind of trapped in between all these computers and mixers, and I can't find them anywhere. Shall we just go straight in and start with this week's Russian Grand Prix?
Yeah, why not? It's wasn't the most classic of races, really, was it? Let's be honest.
Start was good. The end was good.
The sort of 40 or so laps in between.
It's not one that's going to be written about as the classic Grand Prix, is it?
No.
We're not going to be remembering what happened this time next year.
No, it was more reminiscent of the 2014 Sochi race than it was last year, for example, which was quite exciting. On track passes, there were hardly any.
One
Outside of the first
One
lap.
outside of the first lap.
And that was Ericsson on Wehrlein.
Yes,
Thriller.
Oh, sorry, no, Wehrlein on Ericsson, and then Ericsson made the place back in the pits.
yes.
That was the only on-track pass outside of the opening lap.
But it proved that Sauber's... Oh, hang on, no, there were anonymous. We didn't actually see it.
We didn't see any overtakes, no. Outside of course, Bottas getting that great start and blocking off Vettel into turn 2. But yeah, so it's a weird one because I think I was saying before the podcast that seasoned F1 fans would have been quite taken in by that race because it was like tactical battle. You knew it was going to come together towards the end. You knew something was going to happen. And when Ferrari left Vettel out for that length of time, you knew that they were trying to give him the best chance at coming back at Bottas and the Mercedes towards the end of the race.
It's the Formula One equivalent of an episode of Breaking Bad. It advanced the plot quite a lot, but not a whole lot happened.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, actually.
What? So all my friends have seen it, but I've not even watched one episode of the
Yeah, I'm
race.
in the dark on Breaking Bad, I must
Sorry.
admit.
Well, to be fair, we talk about things quite a lot that Dan's never seen, so, why...
Other sports.
Exactly, usually. Or sports entertainment. Yes.
Yeah, none of that tonight. Wrestling free.
Since 93? No.
No,
Since last Monday.
because no Lee.
Possibly.
But got to congratulate Valtteri Bottas on his first win.
Yeah,
Yep.
got to do that first. yeah.
And damn good win as well.
Yeah,
Great.
He did it on his own terms, at his own pace.
Great drive considering, Ferrari had dominated all weekend. And going into Sunday, it was all like, well, how much are Ferrari going to win this by? Can they hold on to the 1-2? And if they do, how far behind are Mercedes going to be? And in that, as I said before, that drag down to turn 2. Because turn 1's not really a turn in Sochi, is it? It's just more of an inconvenient bend.
A long bend.
Yeah. Then Bottas did well to outdrag Vettel into that turn and controlled it from there. He didn't just sort of sit 1-2 seconds ahead just outside DRS. He was 8
racing
seconds
away,
ahead.
yeah.
After the
Yeah.
safety car restart, he really just it was foot
He-
down.
he
off
Vettel'd
went.
it.
We didn't see him for quite a few laps.
Exactly. Yeah,
It was
he
gone.
completely Vetteled it. He just went away and disappeared into the distance, and said controlled the pace for the race. But should we go through team by team?
Go through team by team.
Start at the back, work forwards.
Yeah, and starting at the back means, well, not starting at the back.
Failing
Yeah.
to start.
Poor
way back.
Alonso.
Oh,
What was the radio message on the grid? Try 3 times, Fernando? And his response was, "I've already tried. Why don't you try?"
It was
Yeah.
try yourself.
That's
Try
it. Try
yourself.
yourself.
And I think try wasn't the word he was looking for.
No.
Yeah.
The FOM beat machine didn't need to get used, but
Well,
I'm sure words were said afterwards.
possibly may have been used when he actually retired on the formation lap because an abandoned start, because he didn't even get it back into the pit. He was in the entrance to the pit lane when he pulled over. But yeah, very body language said it all. Very unhappy Alonso. He since said that things are worse this year than they were last year. That's obvious.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, four races and nothing to show for it at all whatsoever. Stoffel Van Dorn did finish the race though, so the car managed 52 after the abandoned start and the second formation lap, racing laps, which we shouldn't be looking at as a positive. But as we spent almost all of the last podcast on McLaren, let's try not to dwell too much on this one.
He did finish ahead of the Saubers as well,
Yeah.
didn't he? Despite having that time penalty.
Yeah, he got given a time penalty. Was it track limits?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. It was him and K-Mag, I think. There was two of them.
Yeah, there
both
was
got
two of those two came up around about the same time, so they had
Yeah.
they had 5 seconds on their stops. So McLaren, yeah, better than Sauber when the car works.
But it was odd because Sauber started on the super softs, and then in the safety car period they went on to ultras, which then meant that they had to stop again to put other ultras on to get to the end of the race. And I mean, I think Sauber were probably gambling on another safety car or some sort of incident which meant they'd be able to capitalise by not pitting again because they were already on the faster tyre. It didn't work out for them, and they actually finished a good 20 seconds adrift, I think it was, of Stoffel Van Dorn.
Yeah, Lee's just sent a message in saying anyone else think Nando dumped it at the start of the pit lane to prove a point.
It's that's your tinfoil hat talking there, Lee.
Yeah.
I think Honda have said that they were trying to talk him through the fix, and the fix actually broke it more, or something like that. I read some quotes on.
That wouldn't come as a great
I
surprise
think
because
he had a loss of power through I think it was the MGUH, I think they said, and then they were trying to talk him through the fix, and that just killed the engine.
Which is why he didn't make it back to
Which
the pits.
is probably why he was a bit fuming as well.
Yeah.
that's
He tried to fix my car engine.
He threw
made it
something
worse.
back into the car. Did anyone see that? I don't know if it was the bolt that holds on the steering wheel or what
possibly.
it was. He threw something back into the car when he was walking away from it. And
The
it was very,
instruction book.
it was very reminiscent of. Do you remember in Singapore 2012 when Hamilton walked away from that McLaren, and then it was announced a couple of weeks later that he signed for Mercedes? It was almost very reminiscent. The body language of that was just like, I've had enough of this, sort of, and disappearing off into the sunset. But we're very early on in the season still. Singapore's like 5 races from the end. Russia's 4 races in. So
Yeah, but we're into our third, or Alonso's into his third year of this.
yeah, he is. Yeah, and he has had well more than enough. So yeah, I can see why Lee might throw that in there. So did he do it to prove a point?
No, because there would be telemetry that showed he'd given up at
Yeah.
that point, and he would have some serious questions to answer.
Absolutely. I also think, I think we briefly said it amongst each other right here in the blog room, saying that if the Indy 500 goes well for Alonso, do you think we'll actually see him back in a Formula 1 car after Monaco?
I do, yeah.
You think he'll come back to Formula 1, even if he trounces the Indy 500, has a great time, and decides he's not coming back to Formula 1?
It might be enough for him to retire at the end of the season, but I think he'll see out the season.
Yeah?
Yeah.
yeah, but Eddie Jordan's got theories on that, just as Eddie Jordan has theories on everything. We'll get to that later.
We'll talk
in
to
the
it later,
sort of
yeah.
news section. We'll move on to Sauber because they managed to get both cars round. They finished the race. They performed the only overtake. In theory, that should be a great way to celebrate their new engine deal. Yeah,
Not quite.
not exactly.
No.
But usual anonymous performance. They didn't take anyone off. They didn't injure themselves. They just pootled round last but one.
Pretty much, yeah.
Didn't get a great deal of them on TV, but we rarely do anyway.
As I say, I think
we
it was just
about knew they were there, really.
Yeah, it's just a pit stop gamble, I think, with that Ultrasoft. It just didn't work.
I think for once, Ruth Buscombe didn't get it right, because she has been great with strategy previously. She was great at Ferrari, left there, their strategy went to pieces. Moved to Haas, strategised them into the points in the first couple of races last season. Left Haas and moved to Sauber. Is it the curse of Sauber?
No, I think there was some good strategy calls at... Was it Australia or was it China that put Sauber quite high up in the...
It was Wehrlein's first race. Was it Bahrain?
But Bahrain it might
Bahrain
have
was
been,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and Wehrlein finished 11th, one place away from the points. That nearly worked out very well for them. I just seen over your shoulder there, Paul, when you were talking about Alonso throwing something back into the car.
Yes.
That Jana commented, yes, he threw his dignity back into the car.
But we've stopped talking about McLaren.
Yes, we have, yeah.
Yes, so I'm kind of surprised that they didn't split the strategies of the two Saubers. If they were taking a gamble, take a gamble with one car and play it safe with the other.
Yeah, that's what we believed McLaren again were doing with Stoffel and Fernando, because we heard Eric Boulier, didn't we, on the grid speak to was it Ted Kravitz he spoke to?
It was Ted Kravitz that did the grid walk this week, yeah.
Yeah, and he said we're going to split the strategy, start on two different tyres, but of course one of them didn't make the start. So yeah, I know what you're saying. It will make sense to split a strategy rather than try and gamble with both cars.
Yeah.
But it didn't work.
It's putting all your eggs in one basket, that, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is doing, yeah.
Whereas Eric Boulier likes to put all these eggs in one pastry.
With lots of flour and plenty of sugar.
I shall get my coat. It's up. No, I can't. I'm pending. Haas, we've got written down next. Grosjean, 2 corners.
Not even that.
Well, 1.5 corners.
He was in a mood all weekend, wasn't he? He was just looking for problems
He
with that
was
car.
not happy with his car.
No.
Yeah, it's the brakes, it's the power, it's the gearbox, it's everything.
It's the balance, wasn't it, with through most of the weekend.
Qualified well down against Magnussen.
Well, he qualified slowest. He, if it hadn't have been for... Oh, God, I'm going to have to say it. If it hadn't have been for Stoffel's engine penalty, he would have been on the back of the grid.
Yeah. But the problem, the massive problem that Haas have got at the moment is they're not able to get both cars working for both drivers at the same time. Either Magnussen takes the initiative and is a lot better than Grosjean, or Grosjean is the Romain Grosjean we know he can be, and K-Mag is the K-Mag we know he can be, and is right far down with Grosjean being a bit further up the grid.
Does that kind of suggest that they've got two drivers with very different styles, and it's going to be difficult to set up the car in, or difficult to find a track that works for both drivers?
Yeah, I think so, because, I mean, Grosjean is very aggressive, very late braking, and as we know, very hard on the brakes. Because, well, they went through 2 different manufacturers for brakes for him this weekend.
Just this weekend, they went from Carbon Industries. Did they go from Carbon Industries to Brembo
They
for
had
this weekend?
Brembo at the start.
They started the season on Brembo. They did Carbon Industries on Friday, and then swapped back to Brembo on Saturday.
Thing is, the rest of the team, I think we spoke about this before, the rest of the teams, they all use Carbon Industries, don't they?
No, they all use Brembo.
Oh, they all use Brembo?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I thought they all used Carbon Industries. But anyway, it's been switched back. So either way, it can't be the fault of the brake material. It has to be the way the car works with the brakes.
I think for everyone else, one of those brake types works. So if both of those brake types aren't working for them, then that suggests it is something
It's the
else.
car, yeah. It's got to be the car.
Or the driver.
Or, yeah, perhaps the driver. We
Well,
know...
well, last year, both drivers were having the same problem, weren't they? Gutierrez was occasionally suffering from brake failures.
And Grosjean consistently suffered from brake failures in the second half of the season. But yeah, Haas are struggling a bit this year. They just need to be able to switch it on with both cars at the same time, and put a solid performance in over one weekend, because they either have a disastrous Friday, which means they lose all their running time leading up to the race, a disastrous Saturday, which means they qualify well down, or they have a good weekend up to Sunday, and then Sunday goes terribly for them.
Well, what happened this week was Grosjean was struggling with the car through the first part of Q1, after struggling with the car through all 3 practice sessions.
Yeah.
Was on course to set a faster time, and then he had his lap ruined by Palmer's crash, which kind of summed up his race as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Palmer's probably not his favourite person at the moment, is he?
Well, I thought it was odd that they decided to blame each other for that, because Grosjean blames Palmer for not giving him any room, and Palmer blames Grosjean for coming up the inside so quickly when there
wasn't any room.
Yeah.
There wasn't any room when he had a Sauber on the outside of him. But it's not really either driver's fault. Palmer couldn't go left. Grosjean couldn't go much further right. They just ran out of room and hit each other.
Yeah, Palmer was quoted as saying he hoped that Grosjean would have used his brain.
And, well, yeah.
You can't rely on anyone to do that, though, really, can you?
Not massively, no.
And we know what Grosjean's like when he doesn't use his brain. Just ask Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton after that Belgian crash years ago. I mean, we nearly didn't have a Fernando Alonso after
He
that.
went flying across. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, K-Man getting up to 13th, the best Scandinavian performance, because Finland's not in Scandinavia.
Was it not count as Scandinavia?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, fair enough.
I thought it was Iceland that was not part of
No,
Scandinavia.
I always read that Scandinavia was Sweden, Norway and Denmark.
Fair enough.
Well, there you go.
I'm sure we've probably got somebody Scandinavian that will correct us on this, and it's one of those, everything that you know is wrong.
Yes.
But,
Like QI.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not that's not a window behind us. The wrong answers will flash up on those.
Yeah.
If anyone says anything too stupid.
But Lee's not here.
No, the problem is Lee keeps flashing up on my screen in front of me on the comments.
When you say flashing, given what he said before he started recording.
I haven't mentioned some of the other things that he's put on there. Anyone that's watching the chat thread on YouTube will have noticed what Lee's doing. Or claiming to be doing.
Is he trying to put you off?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Let's just say he's trying to put me off my stroke.
Oh, God. Right. Enough.
It's not working. We're going to talk about Toro Rosso.
We are.
Kvyat in 12th. Would I be right in thinking that's probably his best finish in his home race?
It's a finish, which is better than last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't hit anyone up the arse twice.
But didn't he get 7th the year before last?
I think it was an average points finish. Yeah. It was something in that
It
region.
was fairly low down for a Red Bull at the time.
But no, obviously a lot better than last year after the issues with Vettel and then getting demoted.
We got lapped by Vettel at one point and he let him through
It was
quite
very
quickly.
gentlemanly, wasn't it? I was
Yes.
staying well out of your way.
Yeah, I'm getting well out of it. Did you see the special helmet for this weekend, by the way? Because it's a home race.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
with
amazing.
a torpedo on
Yeah.
it. After last year's comment of,
Yeah.
he came at me like a ink torpedo.
Yeah. Yeah, Kvyat the torpedo, and it was basically a cartoon version of Danny Kvyat on top of a torpedo.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
Just want to thank Jordan Glover for saying the term Scandinavia always includes the 3 kingdoms of Denmark, Norway and Sweden.
Well, there you
Well,
go.
there you
So
go.
Finland isn't in
Excellent.
Scandinavia. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Wikipedia, where he got it from. No, he admitted it. Points for Sainz, though. He got 10th place. I was expecting more from Sainz, I've got to admit.
Well, he did come in with the grid penalty though, so you're always on the back foot then.
Yeah, he did start 3 places down after his crash
With Lance Stroll.
with Lance Stroll last time. But no, I was expecting him. I was expecting further up the top 10. I was thinking he was going to be good for 7th or 8th because he has been fast around Sochi.
I
But
guess the problem is passing.
The Renault engine is pretty slow there.
They had awful issues, didn't they, the Renault engine over the weekend? Right
Well,
up until Sunday.
The Red Bulls weren't doing nearly as well as you'd expect.
Now, didn't Danny Rick's car shut down on Saturday at one point?
Yeah.
And who else had a bit of an engine shut down? Someone else had one, didn't they? It was Palmer, wasn't
Palmer
it?
had
Yeah.
problems pretty
Palmer
much
had
constantly.
Palmer's engine completely died and ended up having. It caused massive overheating problems, set the chassis on fire, and they had to completely build him a new car.
Yeah.
Before he then put it in the barrier.
Yeah.
Yes.
For Saturday.
Sergei
Twice.
Sorokin did P1 as well in Hulkenberg's car, and he had problems. I don't think he got a lap in. And the engineer called him Nico, which
Yeah.
is trendy this year.
Yeah.
Just call everyone Nico.
If you're
over
not
Team
sure, it
Radio.
might be
Why
Nico.
not? you know, if you're walking down the street and you see someone, but
Nico!
you know who they are, but you can't quite remember their name, and they go, hey, how you doing? Just be like, all right, Nico. Hey, Nico, how you doing?
That'll confuse me even more because that used to be my nickname.
Really?
Yeah, when I was younger, before
Oh,
people
God.
started calling me Pablo.
Fair enough. Why?
His
My
surname.
surname's Nicholson.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
they didn't have to think too hard for that.
No, they didn't.
But yeah, fairly average showing from Toro Rosso, but at least they got on. They got one car in the points.
Yeah, we were saying, was it last podcast that pre-season they were heading the midfield. We thought they'd be the top end of the midfield, but it's just it's their Renault power unit just doesn't appear to be pushing them that far ahead, does it? So we'll see how the season progresses, but not a great weekend for Toro Rosso either.
Yeah. Renault, yeah, again, tale of two drivers.
Yeah.
Hulk
Yeah,
in eighth.
Hulk was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
He's
Hulk
been
was-
getting gradually better as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, since
Where he finishes.
since the beginning of the season, he was running 5th at one point in qualifying and running 6th at one point during the race.
Not his usual fifth.
No, I didn't see him running 5th in the race. I saw him running 6th at one point. I think it was to do with pit stops. He was out of sync with.
Yeah.
with
Sixth
the
is
rest
the
of
new
field.
fifth.
Renault is the new Force India. Yellow is the new pink.
Great show if you're colourblind.
But yeah, Hulkenberg did really well, I think, to put that Renault into the points. Fairly anonymously, he did the Felipe Massa, Carlos Sainz thing of just being quiet, getting on with it.
Yeah.
Incident free.
I don't think we saw much of him at all, did we?
No.
He was just.
But when the
doing
field
his thing.
sort of stretched out, didn't it? Over, after the opening laps, there was like a few seconds between first and second, and the same gap all the way down. Pretty much, there was only a couple of cars that were anywhere near close.
No battles going on in the midfield for the cameras to focus on.
Exactly. So Hulkenberg to get round in 8th and finish in that position is positive for Renault. It's a shame that once again, Jolyon Palmer just has the luck of Mark Webber.
He was flying at one point.
He literally was. He was actually flying through the air.
Yeah, I think at one point in the crash, both him and Grosjean had all four wheels off the track at the same time.
Lap invalidated.
Yeah. Yeah, you've broken the vertical track barriers. But I mean, it was a nightmare weekend for Palmer because we've said before the overheating problems.
Yeah.
Car was practically on fire.
More of a nightmare for his engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be too happy with him,
No.
are they? I don't think
No.
they got sleep at all.
He admits. Did he admit that he was overdriving the car? Did someone say that to me yesterday?
I think I heard that.
In,
Yeah.
in qualifying, he was
Was it
pushing.
qualifying?
I think,
He
yeah.
said he was overdriving it, and that's what happened when he had his accident.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, though, and this is where I know we've had various comments about this, mainly from Josh Stewart, who is definitely not a Palmer fan. Is he getting found out a little bit? Because the car is obviously capable of a lot more than he's getting out of it. Because you can't put it all down to bad luck.
No.
He
The
doesn't
struggles
have
that
the
he's having.
talent to keep up with the car.
Yeah, I think the car is too good. The car's too good for him, and he's trying too hard.
Well, last year it took him a long time to get to grips with the car. It was
His
half a
Monaco
season.
last year was horrific, wasn't it? It was
Yeah.
as bad as it was in Russia, the amount of
Yeah.
rebuilds his mechanics had to do.
Yeah, but then by the end of the year, he got to grips with everything and was doing quite well.
Yeah, but he was going to be out of that seat if they'd gotten any of the drivers that they wanted to get.
Yeah.
He's there by default. The two greatest words in the English language.
Although somebody on the YouTube comments is saying that they are a big Palmer fan. However, it's Lee, so
It is. Yeah, I can see the Gemma's asked, "Does Palmer have any fans? Really?" And Lee's put me
twice.
twice. Yes, and Niska said, "No, Lee,
Yeah, now he's starting with "Give me a P."
no."
Oh,
No,
No.
we'll tell you a new A.
Yeah, Palmer is. He just needs to. He needs his luck to improve, and he just needs to be in the right headspace. He's almost sort of in Danny Kvyat headspace at the moment from this time last year, where
Which you can kind of understand if he's thinking, I'm only here by default. They wanted to replace me. I'm
exactly.
Particularly because there were a few mutterings about Renault maybe being interested in Alonso, and Alonso is so obviously not happening at
Will-
McLaren.
We'll
if he
come back
wants
to
to
that
go.
in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's affected Palmer a little bit
Yeah,
as well. But
he knows.
Hulkenberg, brilliantly, we've got like Force India Hulkenberg back, and it's taken him a little while to get used to Renault, I think, and the team, and how things operate there. So
I think with the lack of testing in modern Formula One, that's now only to be expected. There's very few drivers that can jump into a car in a new team and just own it. Previously, you had test sessions after every race. You had more than 3 pre-season tests. Basically, the cars were running from the end of January at least 4 or 5 times a week up until the first Grand Prix, and then weekly in between races. Sometimes, sometimes you'd have tests in 2 or 3 different locations going on at the same time. And now there's less chance for the drivers to actually get in the car and drive it. It's taking more time for drivers to learn it, but Hulk seems to have got a lot more comfortable now with the Renault.
Verstappen did all right last year.
Yeah. I did say not every driver.
Yeah.
And because of the YouTube comments, we now have a new nickname for Joe Poe. He's not Joe Poe anymore. Face Palmer.
That's very good.
do you know what? For
That
the
works.
current state of affairs of things that he's doing at the moment, that's an apt nickname.
Yeah, want to thank Niska for that one.
Yeah.
Williams next. Lance Stroll finished a race.
Well done.
Yeah. good
For the
times.
first time, we said
He's had
done
3 races of bad luck and 1
Yeah, it's not all been
one of his own.
one of his own.
fault, really.
Yeah, but
mistake, but yeah.
Again, he's someone who just needs more time in the car, really.
but in modern
I think he needed more time in series that weren't Formula
Well,
1.
possibly,
yes.
yeah. You've got people like Max Verstappen who adapted to Formula 1 brilliantly straight away from the same series that Lance Stroll came from. Bear in mind, Lance Stroll was the champion as well in European Formula 3. But it has taken him a little while longer to adapt, and you, Danny, said yesterday, baby steps for him. He had to get his first finish, and he got his first finish. It was just outside the points, so now he's got to look to get his first points next.
And that could come in Spain.
It could well come in Spain. It's just so now that he's finished a race, and for me, I think the pressure is now off Lance Stroll now that he's finished a race. He's now got.
I think he's going to have pressure until he's performing at Massa's level.
I think Massa might outperform him all season. Massa was brilliant all weekend and was unfortunate because of the puncture that he had that put him. Where did he finish? 9th?
Finished 9th in the end, but he lost 3 places on that extra stop for the puncture.
Yeah, I was an idiot at the beginning of the season and said that Williams had made the worst decision of all time by putting Felipe Massa back in that car. I got that very, very wrong. Felipe Massa was brilliant all weekend, and I actually put £1 on him to win the race.
You lost that pound, though.
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, we had the conversation pre-blog about our betting habits, and we need to all sit down and have a serious talk with each other.
I think
Don't
Bottas was about
listen
the
to
only
me when it
person
comes-
who didn't get bet on in like the whole room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was actually. Yeah, in last week's podcast, I think it was Lukey Boy who pointed it out. Actually, he said that did you get this week's prediction all right? And I said no. I went back and listened to last week's podcast, and I said Bottas first, Vettel second, and Hamilton third. So, but I did say he'd be very disgruntled and unhappy Hamilton. But we'll get to
He was.
Yes,
He was,
yeah.
and we'll get to that. But no, absolutely stunning weekend from Massa, just let down at the end by bad luck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and still score points.
But still got the car into the points.
Which in this tight midfield battle, I think is going to be pivotal.
Yeah.
Every point is going to count. Come to mid-season, everyone's going to be there. Possibly not Sauber or McLaren, but everybody else who's not the top 2 are going to be in that midfield battle,
yeah.
and it's going to be tight. Every point will count.
Oh, definitely. The ones that are winning the midfield battle at the moment is Force India, and that is the best result for them this season. Perez in 6th, and Ocon didn't finish 10th. He got 7th.
Yeah. Again, Force India drivers appear to be making that car look a lot better than it might be.
Yeah.
Or is the car okay, but just a little bit heavy?
I'm beginning to think now that the car
It isn't the dog we thought it was.
Yeah, because it does look clunky, it does look misshapen, it does look bulky.
It's ugly.
It's ugly as sin, shape-wise. Not even talking about the colour. But it's bloody quick. And they've got 2 quick drivers in it. We knew what Perez's ability was before this season anyway. that went without saying. Ocon has just been fantastic.
Has Perez got to a point now? He's been in Formula One for what, like 6 or 7 years now. Sergio Perez, has he now got to a point where he's able to take a car that's perhaps not performing brilliantly, and almost Alonso it to the point where he can drag it forward a bit further than it needs to, because he's just got that experience now under his belt, and he never really overdrives a car, does he? And you very rarely see Perez sliding out of corners, running wide, making erratic mistakes. He's always very smooth.
He does seem to be someone who's quite gentle on the car. He doesn't wreck his
which is why he's
tyres
so good with the tyres.
Yeah, which is why he's so good. He's which is why when he signed for McLaren, they thought it was going to be a perfect team up with Perez and Button, but obviously it didn't work out. But Perez and Button, very similar driving styles, very smooth, very just perfect through corners.
Measured, I think, is the best way to describe his style.
Yeah, we don't really know an awful lot about Esteban Ocon's particular style of driving, but whatever, he's making it work for him. He's to finish lined astern with your teammates 6th and 7th in a Force India who are still 4th in the championship at the moment.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
We're talking as well about drivers adapting to new cars. Ocon has only had a couple of races, whereas Sergio Perez has been part of Force India for a few years now.
That's right.
And he just seems to have slotted straight in. He still hasn't got a full year in F1 under his belt yet.
No, which is why I think Mercedes are keeping a keen eye on Esteban Ocon for the next few races. I would not at all be surprised to see Esteban Ocon being the prime performer in that Force India team in the second half of the season, because he will have already done the F1 circus thing throughout most of the circuits that are on the second half of the calendar.
Yeah, because I mean these are tracks that he's not even raced in. What was GP2 when he was in it?
Do they do a Formula 2 race in Russia?
Nope.
They used to do a GP2 in Russia.
They used to, but I don't think Ocon did. I think the only circuit that he's raced on so far has been Bahrain.
Fair enough.
But to get points in your debut with the team at your first appearance in Australia,
yes,
that was the warning shot.
Yeah,
and he's just going on to prove good talent for the future, and I think the better of the two young Mercedes drivers that are on the grid.
I would say so too. Yes,
I think it's hard to call that because Verline's, like Kvyat last year, he's had a big knock to his confidence by not getting the Force India seat, whereas Ocon has had the boost to his confidence by getting the seat. So it might be tough to judge whether Ocon or Verline are showing their natural ability right now.
Yeah. Just looking at the YouTube comments there as well, I think the people who are watching, Jana and Gemma and Cameron, all saying that the Force India drivers are really impressing us at the moment.
Yeah.
Ocon and Perez both performing very well. As I said, two drivers who seem to be performing better than perhaps the car is able to. I'm about to get pounced on by it.
Pounced on.
God.
YouTube viewers will be able to see in the background that Dizzy has decided to become podcast.
Oh no, straight across the table.
There she goes, straight through the cameras.
Hello.
Goes to say hello to Dan.
Goes into the other shot as well.
Oh,
we will try and be professional and carry on because there's more people listen to this than watch it. We'll give it a go. Red Bull. Max, 5th. The best position a Red Bull can hope for.
At the moment, yeah. They're bringing what's essentially a B-spec car, aren't they, to Spain?
Pretty much, yes.
They're calling it chassis improvements and upgrades, and also a different aero package as well. So it's essentially a B-spec car that Red Bull will be bringing to Spain. 5th is the best that they can hope for at the moment. Danny Rick said that in qualifying. When Danny Rick qualified 5th, he said that 5th would be the best that they could hope for because they knew that in qualifying top 4 positions were going to be taken by the 2 Ferraris and 2 Mercedes. For Max Verstappen to finish 5th, it was an uneventful 5th place, but it was an uneventful race.
It was eventful before the race for Verstappen with his
he had a
water leak.
didn't he?
Yeah, they did one hell of a job because the water pump burst, and at one point it was looking dubious whether he was actually going to make the grid. Was he going to have to start from the pit lane? I think they actually got the car fired up with about a minute before the pit lane opened, which was impressive work. the team weren't even 100% sure that the car would actually make it round for the full race distance.
Yeah, Steve Jansen just asked a really good question there on the comments. Anyone else thinking Verstappen was bullshitting? He said he was following the race on the screens whilst he was racing.
No,
He
he's
had a
talked
big
about
gap,
doing that
didn't he?
before.
We've seen Vettel say that he's watched the screens when back in his Red Bull dominating days, that he would watch the screens as he was going around to see if he could pick up any info on other drivers. Or so some of the screens do show the world feed with the graphics as well.
Yeah.
So he was looking. I remember Vettel saying that he looks up at the screens to see where other drivers are, even though he knew he was miles out front. He just wanted to just check to see where anybody else was.
But when the drivers are not racing anyone, they're just lapping. They get into the
And they're
what they
8
call
seconds behind the car in front and 8
Yeah.
seconds ahead of the car behind them.
but they get into what they call flow state, don't they?
Mm.
So they're not even concentrating on driving. They're
No,
just
it's automatic.
they're just doing that. So they do have time to look around and say, "Oh, what's going on the screens?"
There's a great
Can't they turn it to like MotoGP or something?
There's a great chapter in Nigel Mansell's book where he actually talks about that. He talks about driving the Lotus and coming to a point where when he was testing for Lotus, where he realised he wasn't thinking about driving the car. He was thinking about other things completely and was just going round and broke the lap record for a Lotus round Silverstone without actually thinking about it.
Well, daydreaming.
Well, whilst daydreaming, whilst thinking about what he was going to have for dinner that night, whilst thinking, why is that Marshall picking his nose over there? Just concentrating on other things. It becomes like a subconscious thing. Your subconscious takes over. Your subconscious is able to drive the car, leaving your conscious mind completely free to look at what else is going on. Very, very strange sort of state to be in, I think.
I'm gonna have to read that, but that's kind of phoning it in at 170 miles an hour.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think we're gonna have to disappoint people and talk about Danny Rick.
We are. It was. He managed to smile again in the pit pen. He always does, but
he's had a run of bad luck this season, hasn't he?
yeah. Who was it? Somebody was asking us, is this the season that he gets webbered?
I think if the Red Bull does get to be a good car, he might get number 2 driver, because he must be. I've not looked at the championship points, but he must be a fair few behind now.
Yeah.
He's level with Sergio Perez, but I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
Perez and Ricciardo are on the same amount of points.
Yeah, they're both on 22, aren't
That
they?
rings
you
a
wouldn't
bell.
say that Perez had like a storming season so far, really.
No.
Whereas Danny Rick wants to be in a car that is able to make him fight for a championship or race wins at least. He's not in that car at the moment. We don't know how good that B-spec Red Bull's going to be when it turns up in Spain. Might not suit them at all. They might end up going back to this spec car.
Yeah, Danny's in 6th place and Perez is in 7th. They're both on the same points, but it's finishing classification.
But where's Verstappen?
Verstappen is in 5th place on 35, so 13 points ahead of his teammate.
He's already 13 points ahead, and Verstappen himself is 14 points adrift of Raikkonen. So,
A lot of Danny Rick's best drives last year were in the second half of the season. He had a run of about 5 or 6 races, I think, where he was on the podium constantly. So he could, if he can get the car working, he could come back.
And of course, Monaco, if they hadn't screwed up the pit, would have been great for him last year.
Yeah.
and he scored points in every race after Russia, or was it after Russia or after? From Russia onwards last year, I think Danny Ricciardo scored points in every race.
You do know now that we've got the live YouTube comments, we can actually get first-hand evidence of Gemma screaming whenever we mention Monaco 2016.
Yes, is that what's happening now?
That's probably what's about to happen now.
Yes.
But we'll have moved on because we've got Ferrari next.
We do have Ferrari to talk about next, yes. We've spoken about Ferrari as race winners already this year. And perhaps should have been again in Russia. But they had the perfect weekend up until Sunday.
Up until the race.
Up until Sunday. Exactly, it can happen, and it did happen. A 2-3, though, for Ferrari, given the problems that they had last year. I think they'd have snapped your hand off if you'd offered it to them.
Oh,
This to
yeah.
them.
Particularly with Lewis
6
not on
months
the
ago.
podium at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a win for them.
Completely. Yeah. Vettel's extended his points lead at the top of the drivers' championship. Valtteri had a fairly poor race. Was it China when he had that spin and ended up finishing 7th?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Valtteri's not quite in the title fight just yet. Lewis finishing 4th puts him down on points, and Kimi got his first podium. So there's no way that Ferrari can now start questioning Kimi Raikkonen's performances, because he was up there with Sebastian all weekend, and in the race he did what everybody else did and just maintained the gap.
Yeah, we have a fact about Raikkonen that Rogers Brewer has tweeted into us.
Okay.
Just so you guys know, the great Will Buxton pissed off Kimi, calling him B driver. Kimi now won't speak to NBC. Yeah, I didn't know that. Cheers for sending that one through.
Was it Will Buxton who asked him why Bahrain was a special circuit for him?
And he said, ask the circuit.
Yeah, I don't know. Go and ask the circuit.
I think that the one may have come from the other.
Fair enough. But yeah, with Kimi Raikkonen finishing 3rd, Sebastian Vettel finishing 2nd. I know we're concentrating on Ferrari, but that is positive for Ferrari. It's not a 1-2. I mean, they locked out the front row of the grid for the first time since France 2008.
Yeah.
When Massa won the race, Raikkonen finished 2nd, and I think Lewis Hamilton finished 10th in the McLaren that day. McLaren would have loved to have finished 10th in Russia.
But we don't talk about them.
No. And Lewis Hamilton would have been distraught if he'd finished 10th
Yeah.
in Russia. But Ferrari, they split the Mercedes, and a 2-3, they've got to be happy with it.
Yeah. Again, it's like I say, everything that we slagged them off for last season, all the changes that they were making, are they doing too much? No, it's working.
Yeah. And Maurizio Rivabene, is he styling his facial hair to match the masters of Formula 1 now? Is
We had a lot of discussions.
There's a lot more facial hair.
It's
a
isn't
sculpting
there?
of
It's
the
a very
facial
furry
hair.
paddock.
I think FOM have sent a memorandum round.
Also, this is one for Lee, who we know is watching. If you spot Rivabene's hair game as well,
I didn't
he's
notice
styling
the
his hair a bit
Excellent.
Right.
Rivabene is becoming a silver fox.
But going back to the facial hair again, we even have Rob Smedley now with the
Yes.
novelty
Yeah.
sideburns.
Yep. Smedley sideburns.
Yeah, and maybe Sky shouldn't have put the sort of sepia-toned picture of Chase Carey up from the side, because he did look like a 19th century US president.
A proper sepia tone picture of Chase Carey.
Yeah.
Someone's having a laugh there.
Yeah.
Did they superimpose a top hat on him?
They should have done, but...
With a monocle?
So, that leaves us with Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Yes.
Piss poor weekend for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
He struggled and bitched and moaned and whinged his way through from probably Thursday, but I didn't see the press conference.
I don't know if he was on the press conference on Thursday, was he? I missed that, but he, as Dan said, struggled all weekend for pace, for grip, for a balanced car. He didn't really have anything positive going for him right the way through the weekend. He was always outpaced by the Ferraris, and I've got to say he was outclassed by Valtteri Bottas.
Yep.
Completely. In terms of behaviour and racecraft as well. Valtteri did his racecraft perfectly. Lewis perhaps was a little bit reserved at the start, didn't want to get caught up in any incidents, and it didn't work out for him. It worked out beautifully for Valtteri Bottas. A very, very Finnish win. Did you say yesterday, Paul, that somebody translated the conversation between Putin and Bottas after the race?
That was on BBC.
Was that you that said that, Dan?
Yeah, the report was that President Putin was saying to Bottas about how popular Formula 1 was in Russia, and that all the hotels nearby were full. Bottas replied with, should build more hotels.
Which is the most Finnish response you could ever
Absolutely.
You know, that's it's just wonderful.
Yeah, Skyview's got sort of an insight into the off-track life of of Bottas over the weekend as well. They had Ted Kravitz staying at his lake house in Finland, where he's got his furniture workshop where he carves wooden furniture. He's got his sauna. He's got his ice plunge pool.
He's got his own burger named after him.
Oh, he has,
Yeah.
his own burger from the restaurant that first sponsored him when he started karting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have a cat opening a drawer to help herself to snacks at the minute.
I think you know you've made it though when you've got food named after you. I think that's
In your local shop,
yeah,
the
that's
Bottas burger.
the measure of fame.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we'll have to try and get a 3 legs 4 wheels sandwich over here during TT or something.
We will. We could probably construct one.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'd be made out of.
No.
Lee's not involved in this.
Well, no, because if Lee is involved, he's that much of a hipster. It'll have to be artisanal ingredients.
Yes.
He can't
exactly.
he can't defend his beardness while he's not here. I mean, I'm right.
He's still on the comments though. I've seen that. One thing to mention about Mercedes from the weekend is the awful position that Eddie Jordan put Toto in with the.
Because
I
Eddie
thought
Jordan
that was
never
funny.
does cringy
You signed
things
him up
like
for
that.
1 year. How about I come and see you now? We signed you up for 3 years.
Is Eddie Jordan actually just trying to get himself a cut? Does he think if he brokers that deal, he's entitled to 10%?
I think he thinks he's entitled to 10%. The rest of the world thinks Eddie Jordan should just disappear.
Yeah, Eddie Jordan and Cut. You're missing an N there.
Possibly.
We know Lee would say it if he was here, but he's not at the moment.
No, we'll probably get a comment or a private message from him in the next couple of minutes when the stream catches up.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think Lewis's main problem that he said was the third sector of the track, because that's where he was losing that half second.
Yeah.
I'm calling bullshit on that because he was down on everybody else's time before he even got to
Boom,
the third
Alex
sector.
Cordner, Eddie is a dick splash.
Yeah.
Is that the print that was on his shirt, maybe? That was a bit loud, wasn't it?
I'm
That
not
could have been the
entirely-
Dick Splash print, maybe. He does wear some interesting shit.
Wears some interesting rugs as well.
Yeah.
He's got 3, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got 3
New
for different
haircut.
lengths. Yeah.
Well, my hair's good length and I need a haircut. Yeah.
So, overall, I would give this race probably a B-.
Lee is taunting Dan on the comments of the YouTube.
And I can't see them, so I feel completely untaunted.
Oh dear.
Oh, just leave it, Lee.
Sorry, podcasters. I know you're listening to this, and we're actually paying quite a lot of attention to what's happening on the live YouTube. But yes.
But yeah, I'd
give it a B-.
I'd give it a
I
B-.
feel that's generous.
I think that's generous
Yeah.
too. I would.
It only gets the higher grade from me just because we got to see somebody with the first win. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would be a C-.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's important if you're part of the Bottas family, I think, otherwise
And
it was a
Mercedes,
bit-
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Mercedes were happy for him, but they seemed pretty disappointed overall with the weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, they thought that they were going to have the measure of Ferrari at a circuit that they've been very good at before. They didn't. Ferrari pretty
Yes,
much.
they did.
Well, no,
It was one of their drivers.
yeah,
didn't.
one of the
But the car
drivers
did.
on the Sunday. Yeah, but Lewis was powered by wines. I think
I think that's the thing
was
sometimes
tweet
with
that
him,
came
like
into me.
with Grosjean as well. I think sometimes he can talk himself into thinking there's more of a problem than there is,
Yeah.
and that was this weekend.
Yeah,
Just
he
whingy.
was too busy watching his temperatures and rather than concentrating on the race. But Lewis struggled with the car all weekend. Valtteri got his first win. We can't, let's not gloss over that at all whatsoever. Wonderful first win for him. Proves that Mercedes were right to take Valtteri Bottas on, and also right not to number 2 him straight away.
Well, we've not seen Valtteri Bottas against Lewis Hamilton. We've not seen Valtteri Bottas win against Lewis Hamilton in a straight fight where they're both on form yet.
Yeah, much like Bahrain 2014 Rosberg Hamilton sort of fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Barcelona next. That goes well for Mercedes.
That was good. That was good for them last year. I would like to retrospectively change my villain of the week because I said pick a Scandinavian driver last week, Eddie Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, FOM, if you're listening, please stop giving him podium interviews.
No, keep on. It's fun.
I kind of like how wound up people get by him. It's like, is it really the biggest disaster going on in the world right now?
It's just boring now. That's the thing.
People like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he gave a great interview. Benedict Cumberbatch does very well on podium interviews.
Eddie Jordan is sort of round about the level that George Lucas was.
Yeah,
and
Martin.
he never got invited back.
I'd much rather have Eddie Jordan than Kai Abel.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. If there's anyone listening to this that watches the RTL coverage in German with Kai Abel, we'd like to know what Germany's opinion of Kai Abel is.
Well, Lee
I
would be
think
able to tell us, wouldn't he?
No, because he was watching the world feed in a bar. I think he was listening to Radio 5 Live on his phone and
right.
reading the live blog.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
So I don't think he had to deal with Kai Abel a great deal. So I would love to know.
I reckon he's going to be like German Eddie Jordan. He probably polarizes people with his loud clothing.
And loud actions.
Yes.
But yeah, it's in the books now. It's
Yeah.
done.
So we've got a couple of weeks now before Barcelona. We're not going to do Barcelona preview till next week.
That will be next week. So we have news.
So we have a bit of news to go through.
We do
now.
have news. Well, the first one obviously is Sauber taking Honda engines for 2018. And for Sauber's sake, I hope they're getting 2018 Honda engines and they're not stepping back a year.
That
You
would be
wouldn't
a
agree to
really
take
bad
this
decision.
Short term, everybody on sort of social media now appears to be quite abrasive about their opinions of Sauber taking on Honda engines for 2018. It's so early in the 2017 season for something like that to be confirmed. But then when you think about when McLaren announced that they were taking on Honda engines, wasn't it like 2 years in advance?
It
or
was
something
very
ridiculous like that?
early.
And it's been an abrasive reaction so far from people like, well, Sauber are just going to disappear off the face of the planet then. It's just, well, no, not necessarily. It depends what kind of deal they've got. Don't forget that Honda are pumping $100 million a year into McLaren's budget. That's something that would definitely keep Sauber afloat, even if it was half of that.
Even if they're going to be getting 2018 Honda engines,
Yeah.
at the same price that they're paying for 2016 Ferrari engines, it's a better deal than using year-old engines.
Yeah, and we think, from what Eric Boulier said on the grid on Sunday, that McLaren will continue to use Honda engines, because he said we look forward to more Honda engines on the grid.
Yeah, he was making those noises, but I think at the moment they're the only noises that he can make. Because if McLaren are going to jump ship, that will be announced later in the season. And at the moment, they've got as far as saying the Honda engine isn't good enough. The Honda engine isn't good enough to be in F1. So they're not just going to walk away now, because they're still trying to salvage something out of the season. Even if the decision's been made by McLaren, and they haven't told Honda yet that they're signing with Mercedes for next year, Honda are still going to be trying to improve the lump of crap that's in the back of the car now.
Yeah, and they have to keep trying to improve it, because if they were to just give up, then what would be the point in them even turning up to races?
Yeah.
There's obviously something there for Sauber to something enticing there for Sauber to have tied in with a Honda deal. They've been with Ferrari since about, was it 2011, something like that, 2010, 2011.
They've always been a Ferrari team, apart from when
they were
BMW
Sauber.
bought them. Yeah.
And they were Mercedes actually when they
They
first
were-
came.
they were-
to
They were Mercedes' more or less works team for
were
their first couple of seasons.
They were the people who brought Mercedes back into Formula One. For it was the first 2 seasons, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So they're using year-old Ferrari engines, and as Dan said, using current year Honda engines is going to work out better for them, because at least the engine will get developed.
Yeah,
Power unit,
there is a
rather.
chance that it will end the season on a par with the other engines. There is no chance that a 2016 engine will end the season on a par with the 2017
No,
engines.
and that's what I was saying before. Sauber need to try and score points early in the season, which is why they're probably taking risks like that tyre gamble that they took this weekend in Russia. But they need to score points early on, because if they don't, they're not going to score points in the second half of the season. Because with the engine development being open now, the 2017 power units are going to be so much further down the road, figuratively speaking,
that they will be literally.
and literally as well, than the than a year-old Ferrari engine that's not getting any development. I think short-term could work out poorly for Sauber and Honda, but long-term could work out very well for McLaren, Sauber and Honda, and I only think that because of a theory that Dan's come up with.
Which one? Because I've had a whole bunch of them. Oh, would this be...
McLaren disappearing and coming back.
Yes. So, Eddie Jordan spread a bunch of rumours over the weekend.
He did.
One of which has been confirmed as true already.
That's worrying. But then again, a stop clock.
He's got very good sources.
He has.
His tomato sauce. Sorry.
We haven't got a drum
no,
tonight for the rim shot.
There's no apology good enough for that, is there?
No.
No.
So, yeah. Eddie Jordan broke the Sauber getting Honda engine story. He also said he is pretty sure that McLaren are moving away from the Honda and getting Mercedes engines for next year. If that's true, then that's going back on Ron Dennis's thing about they've got no chance of winning a world championship with a Mercedes engine, and they want to win world championships.
Of course they do.
So, my thinking is that it would make sense, and Honda might even agree to this because of the amount of flack that Honda are publicly getting from McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
Deserved flack. McLaren could go back to Mercedes engines until Honda have sorted out their problems and got something that's credible, and then go back to being the works Honda team.
But they brokered that deal to keep Honda in Formula One.
So yeah, they could have been involved in the Sauber deal.
Yeah.
This is just theorising. I don't have Eddie Jordan's sources, but they could have been involved in that deal. They could maybe be sending some McLaren engine people over to Sauber as part of it, something like that, in order to keep Honda in Formula One and developing and improving.
Yeah.
It helps Sauber out, and in the long run, it's going to help McLaren out. And in the short term, it's going to put McLaren back at the front of the grid, helping McLaren's sponsors out.
Yeah. It's a huge gamble for both McLaren and Honda if that's the case, because Honda are essentially saying, okay, well, we'll cut all ties with you, because they would have to, and we'll cut all ties with you then, whilst you go back to your previous engine manufacturer, and we are going to believe that by, I don't know, 2020, for example, that you're going to come back to us when we promise to have sorted everything out. It is a bit of a...
Well, 2020 is a good call for that, because that's when the new engine regs will come in.
That's what I mean. It would only be two seasons of McLaren Mercedes again before switching back to McLaren Honda. But it's... Yeah, for me, Honda need to have as many engines on the grid as they possibly can. More teams providing more feedback. McLaren Honda and Sauber Honda next year would provide 2 lots of R&D, research and development, for Honda to work off. And also, I'm not saying that there will be new teams in Formula 1, but if there are, Honda should probably look at putting one of them in the sport as well, in putting one of their engines rather in the back of the car. So I was a bit distracted by the cat jumping on the microphone table.
She obviously has strong views on this.
Yes. Dizzy has strong views on what will happen with a Honda in Formula 1.
Yeah. It's very hard doing this with a roving podcast. I'm used to cat-free podcasts of late. So apologies for any microphone slumping. We've got a very heavy-footed cat on the table. The other rumour that Eddie Jordan came out with was Alonso going back to Renault next year.
Now, Lee said this how many weeks ago?
So is Lee Eddie Jordan's secret source?
I think Lee might be Eddie Jordan's secret love child.
Possibly.
Or lover.
Do they get their hair from the same place?
Well, once every 4 months when Lee shaves his beard off.
Oh, is that what they make EJ's
That's
wigs
what.
from?
Yeah,
Wow.
EJ gets his rugs hand spun
Amazing.
by
In exchange for
by a
rumours.
beardinal artisan. He's going to fume in a minute.
Yeah,
Oh,
well.
he's not going to enjoy it. I'm watching the YouTube comments to see when Lee chips in with that, because he's not going to like that.
Yeah, either that or one of us will get a text any second.
Yeah.
Could we, on a serious note though, could we actually see it happening? Because it's been rumoured quietly, but now Eddie Jordan's saying it on live TV.
To me, and I can't remember if I've said this before on the podcast or whether we've just said it privately, it doesn't make sense for Alonso to be going to Renault with where they are at the moment. They need to be higher up before he can take that risk.
But if Hulkenberg's progressing like he is and putting a car in the top 10, would that car with Alonso be even further up the grid?
Yeah,
it would, but it'd be beating the Williams. It wouldn't be...
World
That's
champion.
better
wouldn't
than
be
what's
World
going on for
Championship.
him
So
now.
I argue that Renault as a works team could well win the development race this year, with the open engine regs able to work on your power unit and improve it. What's the word? Indefinitely. You can work on it and put as many different parts into the pool as you like. That
Well, it's freemium, I think is the phrase now.
freemium, is that the
freemium.
word?
Freemium.
Freemium.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Sounds like
and
an
with-
element.
With budget coming from both Renault and Red Bull, that
Yeah.
will put them in a very strong position
Exactly,
for,
and
for
also-
engine development.
Yeah, Renault are in the position that I was talking about before that Honda are not. Renault have their engine power unit in the back of both Red Bull teams, 4 cars, and 2 Renault cars. 6 cars on the grid are powered by Renault.
That's 30% of the grid.
Exactly. So they're getting all that feedback. They know exactly how different chassis react with that power unit, and their R&D is essentially free, because the teams are going to be paying for those power units, and the amount of feedback that Renault are going to get from that is going to be wonderful. I wouldn't be surprised if Red Bull switch back from being a tag engine to Renault next year, or very soon.
I think I can still see it staying as a tag engine just because of the money that Tag are paying to get their name on the car,
Quite possibly, but
because they are effectively second title sponsor. Because you can't have another title sponsor of a Red Bull car. So the only way to sponsor a Red Bull car and get your name mentioned as part of the team is to sponsor the engine.
yeah, I guess so. But it's still a Renault engine.
Yeah.
And I actually think Renault could be the fastest improving team throughout the season. They've gone from sort of the back end of the midfield. They could be right up towards the front end of the midfield, mixing it with the Red Bulls by the end of the season. I don't think they'll break into that top 3 just yet. But if they can develop that quickly over one season, don't see why Alonso wouldn't go back over the winter and say, right, okay, I think I can win races in this car.
And he surely would aid the development more than Julian Palmer. He's got a bit more experience
Yeah.
helping
I
them
think
set a car up.
anyone would take
Well,
Fernando
yeah.
Alonso over Julian Palmer. Even into a fight, I'd probably take Fernando Alonso over Julian Palmer.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, one
Yes.
thing that you mustn't forget is that Renault is a continuation of the Enstone team.
yeah.
There's one hell of a pedigree there, going back to 1994 with championships.
Yeah.
Through various incarnations, they've not been too bad, and there'll be people there that have carried over from previous eras, when they were Lotus, when they were Renault last time, when they were Benetton.
Probably, yeah.
That factory, company, whatever, whoever's name is above the door, but you do get championship winning cars coming out of that building.
Yeah, just some of the comments coming in there. Nick Johnson is that saying Renault is far riskier than the top 3. Yes, it is, but would Alonso go back to Ferrari necessarily?
He's not going to have a Red Bull seat because they've
No.
got their own young driver program.
He's not. Yeah, he won't have a Red Bull. Would he go back to Ferrari? Would Ferrari have him against Vettel or as a number 1
That's
driver
a lot
against
of drama waiting
Exactly.
to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And there's slightly more drama waiting to happen if he goes to Mercedes.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I think Ferrari would rather have that as Mercedes' problem than their own. Ferrari in a strong position right now. They don't need to think about bringing in Fernando Alonso. If Mercedes decide not to take on Valtteri Bottas for another year, because he's only contracted for this year, or Lewis Hamilton walks away from the team at the end of the year, then maybe, perhaps, Fernando Alonso could be in a Mercedes. But at the moment, it's looking like the door is closed.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I'm saying at the moment.
It looks like it is.
At the moment, it looks like it's closed.
But to quote Murray Walker, anything can happen in Formula One.
And it usually does.
Just going to bring things down a little bit now, but it is a very sad anniversary, both today and yesterday.
Sad anniversary, but also reflection and celebration as well.
Yeah, because it's 23 years today since we lost Ayrton Senna.
Which means it was 23 years ago yesterday since we lost Roland Ratzenberger.
Yes, probably I would say the worst weekend that Formula One's ever had.
Yes, absolutely. People will still refer to Ayrton Senna now as the greatest of all time. Lewis Hamilton himself put a post up on Instagram earlier on today saying that, R.I.P. Ayrton Senna, greatest of all time. His statistics may well have been beaten by other drivers, but his drive and his passion and his ability to make a car go faster than it should have done, even when it was the best car on the grid, was just outstanding. I remember seeing Ayrton Senna race, and I can actually remember quite vividly that European Grand Prix in '93.
The Donington race.
Yeah, we started, I think he qualified 4th or 5th, and then was leading at the end of the first lap after getting a terrible start. Leading at the end of the first lap, because he just knew where the grip was in the wet. That's why people keep saying like Max Verstappen in the wet, very much like Ayrton Senna, because he just is able to find the grip from somewhere.
Well, it's generally a mark of a class driver is that they're good in the wet.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ayrton Senna was perhaps the best in the wet. Michael Schumacher said that he realised when he realised how good Ayrton Senna was in the wet that he had to get better at driving in the wet.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
Michael Schumacher picked up that mantle of being the best driver in the wet. You knew if you switched on the TV on a Sunday and the Formula One had started and it was raining, you were like...
Murray Walker would use the word Rainmeister.
Reaganmeister.
Reaganmeister. Yeah, and that had nothing to do with Ronald Reagan, weirdly enough.
No.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen the Senna documentary film,
watch it.
And the other question that has to be asked is why?
Yeah. How?
Yeah.
But also, not forgetting there was an accident that weekend at Imola as well with Rubens Barrichello, where he was not able to race, was he, because of that?
He wasn't able to race. He knocked himself out, swallowed his tongue, and it was only
bit his lip.
Bit through his lip, and it was only Sid Watkins' quick intervention
that
saved his life. It could very close to have been a triple fatality weekend, which it doesn't bear thinking about.
No. And Roland Ratzenberger, of course, he was quite a lot older than other drivers when he came to Formula One, and he had a relatively successful period in Formula 3 in Europe, and he was one of those drivers with there were quite a lot of drivers in the 90s who had the money, were able to pay for their seats, and were sort of just given a super license without necessarily having the necessary experience to be in Formula 1. Roland Ratzenberger, though, he did have the years behind him in single-seater Formula 3, and it was very sad to see him in the qualifying, wasn't it? I think
that was
Saturday.
It was Saturday qualifying.
Yeah. One of the first people on the scene was Ayrton Senna.
Yeah, who famously at the time said to Sid Watkins, "I want to retire now," and Sid said to him, "Come on, let's both pack it in. Let's just go fishing." And Senna said he'd got to finish the weekend.
Yeah.
I believe he had an Austrian flag in his car, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
Yes, he was going to hold it up on the podium because he was determined he was going to get his first finish of the season, because he'd already had 3 DNFs in the Williams, and he was determined he was going to get his first podium of the season, and the Austrian flag was coming out on the podium celebration.
Yeah, and he Virtual Statman Sean Kelly has tweeted his memories of that day, and anybody who can remember May the 1st, 94. There are certain things about the day that just stick with you. We were talking before about what we were each doing. I was watching the race that day, and I saw the crash, and I remember the red flag and it being just terrible, and just being like, oh my god, he's going to have to go to hospital, and the helicopter coming down, and being there for a long time. And then the race continued, the race finished, and I was only 10 years old at the time. I didn't think necessarily that it was as bad as it was, and it was only really when a family member came around later on and said that he died, and then switched the news on 10 minutes later, and it was the main headline news, and it was just such a shock, because I think the last person before that weekend to die in a Formula 1 car was Elio De Angelis in a test in the mid-80s, and his car caught fire.
There has been a long period of relative safety.
Yeah, and again from Senna right up through to the unfortunate death of Jules Bianchi a few years ago. There have been injured marshals and deaths of marshals and spectators at Formula 1 as well, which is incredibly sad. But competitor wise, it is very, very rare now to for something so tragic to happen. And it's good in a way that safety is improved, but motorsport is dangerous.
It says that on every ticket. We live on the Isle of Man. It says that every 250 metres at the side of the road.
Yeah,
it does. Especially of course when the bikes are flying around. If you've got a spare few minutes now, and you open up another YouTube window and just stick in there Isle of Man TT and just watch what those guys do, and you'll see, yes, motorsport can be incredibly dangerous.
With a lot of TT crashes as well, when I've worked as a journalist, I have the unfortunate task sometimes of going to the inquest for fatal crashes, and it can just be the smallest thing. It takes the tiniest thing to go wrong, and it's just done.
Yeah, like a tyre valve or something.
Yeah, a chain. I remember going to one where a chain jumped loose a couple of years ago, and it takes nothing.
Yeah, it'd be the smallest thing that makes these things happen.
I mean, there was a sidecar crash a few years ago. Thankfully, both drivers walked away. There was a couple of serious injuries. The driver and the passenger were injured, but are still involved in the sport. They hit a rabbit.
It was a hare,
Was it
I
a
believe.
hare?
It was a hare.
On one of the fastest stretches of the course. I think they were doing about 130, 140 miles an hour
around
at the
about
time.
that in a sidecar, I think, yeah.
And the hare just got spooked, came out into the road, and one guy lost an arm.
Yeah,
the other lost a leg, I think.
Yeah.
It was the passenger.
See, now that's just that's a different discipline entirely to Formula 1, but the sentiment remains the same. People are going very, very fast, and if you're going very, very fast and there's a possibility that you might stop very quickly, then the potential for injury is huge.
But, we'll move on now, but Ayrton Senna, never to be forgotten.
Absolutely not.
And neither should Roland Ratzenberger be. We have our logo on a car that actually takes part in races.
May have seen this if you've looked at our Facebook page today.
Or the YouTube channel. Massive thank you to Dave Daddario, who races in the Formula 2000 series in the Atlantic Championship, who has put a 3 legs 4 wheels logo on the nose cone of the car. He was racing at Virginia International Raceway this weekend, and unfortunately DNF'd. He got
Lance Stroll.
As somebody put on the comments, he got Joe Po'd up the trumpet.
Joe Po'd up the trumpet.
Yep, somebody unfortunately ran into the back of him on the first lap. No injuries, I'm glad to say, except to the car. But the nose cone broke off. He lost the front wing, but it actually broke just below our logo.
So everybody who's taking photos of Dave Daddario's damaged car was actually taking photos of our logo.
Is that a structural logo?
Maybe it should have been, if it was a little bit further down, it might have held it on, maybe.
Yeah, load-bearing decal. But you can... Dave's going to send us regular race reports. His next race is in Indianapolis in June, I think. And he's going to send us regular race reports. We'll put those on the website. If you go to 3legs4wheels.com, we'll get as many pictures of him and the car up there as he sends us. Hint, hint, if you're listening, Dave, or Mac, his engineer. And there's a couple of videos up there already. But we just want to wish him the best of luck for the upcoming season. And James Holman, if you are listening, which I assume you are, your stickers will be in the post very soon to go on your car.
Yes, I want to say thanks to Dave and also to Magnum Motorsports' team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone else is racing and would like some stickers to put on their car, we'll be giving our email address at the end of the show.
Yeah, get in touch.
Yep.
Get in touch. Right, what have I got next on the list? I've got Formula Lee.
Formula Lee.
Which has now got serious.
It has gotten a little bit... It's gotten more competitive than I think it's ever been.
Yes, because not only do we have the end-of-season prize provided by Niall Slim Drew,
Yes.
Lee's favourite pile of words.
Yeah, the champion and Formula Lee champion will have the prize provided by Niall.
Yeah, but now we have a prize for every race winner as well, which Dave Foley from Ultraflix is providing for us, of a £10 or local equivalent Amazon voucher.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Dave and
Thank you very much,
Ultraflix.
Mr. Foley.
So, starting with this race.
So how did we do in the 3 legs 4 wheels room to start with then?
Am I only to talk about the 3 legs 4 wheels room, or am I to talk about all 4 3 legs 4 wheels participants? Because there was one participant who obviously isn't in the room tonight. Sean doesn't play F1.
I get
That's
too
fine.
angry. At some point, a controller will go through the TV, and there'll have to be a
I've been that
grovelling
close.
phone call.
I feel you.
to the house insurance.
I feel you. I've been that close.
I don't get ragey often, but that is something that sets me off. That and grocery shopping.
Lap invalidated.
Yeah, every time we played Mario Kart, I insist on at least a 5-foot
Yeah.
buffer between me and you.
No, it's not good for me.
It wasn't good for my wrist when you bounced
No,
the
I am
windmills off
sorry.
at
I'm
that time.
sorry.
You were aiming it at me.
No,
or at least I hope
I
you were.
just the rage happened.
But between the 4 of us in 3 legs 4 wheels, oh god, I'm looking forward to saying this. In 4th place this week was Lee.
Ooh.
He's on holiday.
You say this week. It's been a fortnight,
It's been
hasn't
a
it?
fortnight.
There's 2 weeks to get a good time in.
And he only went away on Thursday.
Could he blame track evolution?
No.
He probably
A
will.
green
He probably
track.
will. Green track, wrong tyres, track limits. Oh, I'm loving this. Yeah, Lee was 4th out of us with a 1:42.64.
Okay.
I spent most of this afternoon 1,000th of a second behind him.
Ooh.
Then borrowed Chris's setup, so I overtook him. And I finished 3rd out of us with a 1:42.15. Dan was next with 1:40.198. I've got down here, but you've improved your time a little.
Yeah, I got
140.
140.
Which I didn't look at. And Chris was this week's winner from us lot with a 1:39.564.
So yeah, the only one of us to break it to 139s, but I mean it wasn't easy. It
And,
was a difficult task, I think.
that was still outside the points.
We're still outside the points.
Yeah. So I've got the top 10.
All right.
10th place is Aaron Bradley, who I think is a newcomer, 1:39.311.
I think he may have been an entrant before.
Possibly. The next one is definitely a newcomer, because I do remember adding him to the timesheet and winding him up on private message on Facebook when he sent his first time in, saying the time's good enough for the points for now. Well, your second time was more than good enough for the points. Daniel Lenvi, you got 9th place with a 1:39.147. In 8th is Paul Large Simon, as distinct from Paul Small Simon.
Yep.
He did a 1:39.039. Then we get below into the 1:38s.
130. That's crazy. I couldn't get anywhere near the low 139s.
In 7th was Finn Wilson, 1:38.961. Freddie Brunner was 6th, 1:38.859. Dave the Flying Flynn, 5th place.
Regular entrant to Formula Lee.
Yep. Dave's time was 1:38.730. Pete Bull in 4th, whose setup I was copying most of the time. And happy birthday, Pete.
Happy
Yes,
birthday
happy
to
birthday.
Pete Bull.
Yep, Pete's birthday on Tuesday. 1:38.697. Top 3. Top 3. And by God, it's tight.
These people are quick.
The scarily quick. 3rd place. You've been trying for the best time all week and you got very close, but it's Luke Nipper, Lukey boy.
Oh, good effort, Luke.
1:38.670. 2nd place, Bradley Chambers, 1:38.643, which means this week's winner and recipient of the first prize from Ultraflix is Jeff Sharp with a 1:38.463.
That's like a second,
hell
over a
did you
second
do
quicker
that?
than I was. That's just mental. Well done, Jeff. That's brilliant. Well, we do have instructions from Lee as for what the new Formula Lee challenge is, and again, it's a 2-week challenge. So, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you get a slight head start than anybody who's listening to the podcast. Then, obviously, we're going to be in Spain. He's been kind enough to leave it dry.
Thank God.
In the morning time, but in order to give Fernando Alonso a little bit of love, we're going to be in a McLaren. So don't bin it at turn 3 and have a shocking accident. Just make sure you get around the Barcelona track in a McLaren as quickly as you can on Codemasters Formula 1 2016 on any platform other than the mobile platforms. Send us your time and we'll put you on the list.
Yep, send in your times by private message on Facebook, you can DM them on Twitter, and you can send them in by email. We'll give you all the details of how to contact us.
Is it Monday the
at the end of the
15th of May?
It will be Monday the 15th of May, and it has been pointed out that 6 o'clock is a little bit of a bad cut-off time because there's a couple of people who want to have an extra blast last minute after they get home from work.
Right.
So we're changing the cut-off time to 7 o'clock.
Okay, an extra hour.
You've got an extra hour.
Fine, fair enough.
So we will do that in future. So you've got 2 weeks. Soon as we're finished tonight, get going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chris, you have a guitar next to you.
I do.
That has become the catchphrase for this, hasn't it?
I think so.
Even though Lee's not here, we are totally shunting tonight.
Got to try and remember how to play this now, haven't I? I did only learn this just literally before we were doing the podcast. Thanks to YouTube and was it Chordify?
Chordify.
Yeah.
Managed to find the chords.
Don't say it, baby. I'm not a game for you to play. Don't say it, baby. Who's a total shot? I hit the wrong chord at the end, but not that matters.
Now, some listeners might not recognise that song.
No, it was actually Zane that got us to that suggested that weeks ago, and I've been meaning to do it, but other opportunities have arisen, and that was a Jacques Villeneuve song from his what year is the album? 2000 and something. What's it called? Something Paradise.
Private Paradise.
Private Paradise, and the song is called "Fooling Around." It is available on YouTube. And
It didn't trouble the charts.
It didn't trouble the charts.
I think
no.
it sold 168 copies in total.
Yeah.
That's literally the most in tune it's ever been as well.
Thank you. I think
He set the bar low. I'm not sure how much of a compliment you want to take that as, but
yeah. So yeah, we often blank out certain bits in the podcast that can't be said by using Jacques Villeneuve, especially in the earlier days.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an actual album written by Jacques Villeneuve, and that's one of the songs off of it. So,
That's the only one we've dared bring ourselves to listen to at the moment. I think somebody's put the whole album up on YouTube, or 3 minutes of each track.
everyone who's listening, and is also, for the people on YouTube as well, go and play that song. I want to see how many more listens or watches it gets.
Well, when
Jacques Villeneuve, Fooling Around.
When we first discovered it, the video had got 9,000 views. In the 2 years that we have been taking the piss mercilessly out of that song, it's up to about 17,000 now. And I think we can take credit for a large number of, well, actually watching it ourselves.
Yeah, just on repeat.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah, just to torture people.
Yes. Anyway, I've done a theme tune for a reason, because I've got a total shunt to do.
Yay.
Now, Lee did send one through, but I didn't realise until quite late on today that it was actually missing some clues off of the thing that he sent me, and also because he's on the YouTube comments and is feeling rather belligerent, I'm not going to use the one that Lee's given me. I'm going rogue and I'm doing my own total shunt.
Lee, belligerent?
Right, so are we ready for... You've got 11 clues in total.
Right, is it still the same rules where we've got to give you
I
an attempt at an answer after the third and the sixth,
yeah.
and then the last one?
I've got to keep true to Lee's rules. There will be an answer after the third and an answer after the sixth, and you've got to give me an answer at the end. Okay, we'll answer clues getting progressively easier, hopefully, Play along on the YouTube comments as well. Bearing in mind they have the benefit of Google.
Yes.
And if you're listening on the podcast, absolutely play along. Just if you're wherever you are, driving your car, sat at home, or you're at work, whatever.
Oh, Lee wanted to know, did you sing "I'm Not a Gay" for you to play?
Yeah. What if I was? You got a problem with that?
It's just like he's here with us.
Exactly. Right, are we ready? Total Shunt clue number 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was born in 1959.
Okay, that's quite a lot of people. That would make him round about 58 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've had Roland Ratzenberger already, haven't we?
We have Mansell.
Riccardo Patrese.
They're the same person. Gianna says she's put a guess in, her mum.
If your mum was born in 1959, that's just a coincidence.
I think we're going to need another clue, aren't
Yeah,
Another clue?
definitely need more
Possibly.
information.
Yeah, absolutely. Clue number 2. My motorsport career started in 1981.
So skipped go-karting,
That's
obviously.
quite
and
late.
Started round about 21, 22. That's... yeah.
Could we be looking at Tommy Byrne?
No, because most rally drivers take the dad's cars out with a 13, and that's when they find they can drive off-road.
He wasn't a rally driver.
Tommy Burns? I was thinking of Tommy Burns.
Wasn't he a Scottish politician?
Possibly. No, that was Alex Salmond.
Oh, right.
No, Tommy Byrne was the Irish driver who came up the same time
Oh,
as...
the one with the
yes.
documentary.
Yes.
Wait, yes, I know who you mean. Yeah, that is a thought.
But I don't think we've had enough clues yet
No.
to say with any confidence.
You want another clue?
That's sort of what I was hinting at.
I went to motorsport school with a school friend who became an F1 driver.
I don't think Tommy Byrne went to motorsport school.
Motorsport school.
I am going to need an answer. Just it's going to have to be a total guess.
Yeah.
I get that, but such are the rules of Total Shunt. I hope I'm doing you proud, Lee.
No, he's not commented yet. No,
He
it's
has.
Not, no, it's not Batman.
Lee, I am not a Batman.
And thank you, Jeff. I did mean Richard Burns. Brain fade tonight. And Batman was born before 1959 as well.
Probably.
You can tell I'm stalling for time. Started motorsport in 81 with a school friend. Motorsport school. Oh, hang on a minute.
School friend who went on to become a Formula One driver. So, a Total Shunt this week may not be a Formula One driver.
But yeah, what about Johnny Dumfries, who was called Dumfries because his dad was the Earl of Dumfries, so who'd have gone to a very expensive school, could have afforded to go to motorsport school along with a school friend, but when you're at a posh school like that, it's a school chum, and who would also have been able to afford to go to motorsport school. And he had a completely unspectacular F1 career. Don't know who the school friend would have been, but somebody posh.
Let's try it.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Are you Johnny Dumfries?
I am not Johnny Dumfries.
Damn.
I drove in Italian Formula 3 in 1985.
Yeah, this is still no help.
Yeah.
I say you got 11 clues, and this is only number 4.
Yeah.
So
And Lee, I wasn't born in 1865 either. I'm going to be having words with you if you get back to this island in one piece. No.
No idea.
I've got nothing.
No. Clue number 5.
I raced in Porsche Super Cup and the Ferrari Challenge in the 90s.
It's still... Ooh, that is... I mean, Porsche Super Cup is usually one of two things. It's people on the way up or people that have never been.
Are we thinking someone who maybe ended up touring cars, something like that?
Yeah, that could be.
Would Gabriele Tarquini be the right age?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, that might be a good call. We've still got another clue before we have to give an answer.
Let's make use of that clue.
I think that's a good idea.
I made it to F1 in 1992. No, Lee, it's not Paul.
I am going to punch in the throat. I seriously am. I have to get a pair of step ladders to reach it, but... made it to F1 in 1992.
How are the YouTube comments looking? Let's just have a quick look.
So that's...
The best people are Scottish. Lee was conceived in 1981. Cheers for sharing.
Patrick Daly saying he knows who it is but hasn't given an answer yet.
When did Damon Hill make his debut for Brabham?
Would have been around then.
Would have been about then.
He'd be about the right age, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Although you would have thought he would have experienced motorsport before he was 22.
Wasn't allowed to do it because his mum wouldn't let him. And after his dad died, the family were broke.
And he started off as a motorcycle racer, not a car racer.
Yeah, because he was a motorcycle courier at first, wasn't he?
Interesting.
Should we go with that?
I don't think we've got a better answer.
Let's go with that, yeah.
Are you Damon Hill?
I'm not Damon Hill.
Yeah, he wouldn't have raced in Italian Formula 3, would he? He would have raced in British Formula 3.
Depends where you
I was
can
going to
get.
say, it depends where you
Depends
get
where
the
you can get a
drive, doesn't it?
seat.
Right, you've still got 5 clues to go before you're going to give me a final answer.
Thank
And,
God- thank God for that.
these start to get a bit more personal now.
Lee's been getting personal since Clue 1, but it's mainly been aimed at me.
No, Lee, it's not Super Mario.
Because you've already done that one.
Right, next clue. My parents are very well known in my home country.
Pedro Deniz's parents own a supermarket chain.
Does that make you a celebrity?
I don't know, ask Mr. Sainsbury.
Well, yeah, true.
Could be an Andretti. There's thousands of them.
There's a lot of them.
Not a whole lot made it through to Formula 1, though.
No, Michael was 93. When
Would that
Quite
be
old.
Yeah.
Would that be famous parents as well, or would that just be one famous parent?
Well, I don't know, because most American racing drivers marry a country singer that we've never heard
Oh,
of.
that's true. That's true.
And as you can probably tell from the four of us, we are not big country and western fans. There are a lack
No.
of Stetsons in this room.
Next clue.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is where you'll start to get it. I owe my life to the original Star Wars movie.
What? This is where we'll start to get it.
Yep.
You have given us no hope whatsoever. Somebody who nearly died crossing a road, but then they remembered the Green Cross Code because the Green Cross Man was the original body of Darth Vader.
I'll tell the story afterwards if you do or don't get it. But shall I just go straight in with the next clue?
I
Yes.
think so.
I was replaced by Damon Hill.
Which is ironic, because we're going to have to replace Damon Hill as an answer
Yeah.
from earlier.
Oh God, what was she called? Can't remember. Davina Galizia, who drove the Brabham before Damon Hill did.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I didn't ask Google. I did not ask Google, and I didn't ask Alexa
Alexa.
either. Oh God, was it Davina Galizia or was it Layla Lombardi? No, she was in. No, sure, Layla Lombardi was in the 70s.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna need the next
Next clue. I was kidnapped age 16, but fell in love with my captor and begged the police not to send him to jail.
Have you just bounced around Wikipedia for like weird facts?
I'll
here?
repeat that clue because there's a bit of a clue within the clue. I was kidnapped age 16, but fell in love with my captor and begged the police not to send him to jail.
We have already had something from Mario Kart.
Yes. That's not where we're going with this.
Patty Hearst.
You want the final clue?
Are we up to the final one already?
Yes.
Jesus.
Everything.
I can see
Wait,
the
wait.
YouTube comments, and somebody already got it, and I think their comment has now gone up and passed.
This is me not scrolling.
I take it that the owing the life to the Star Wars and the kidnapping might be related.
Would you like the final
I'm
clue?
not entirely sure how.
Well, it's really weird if they're not, and it's kind of weird if they are.
Can we just go for it's weird?
Yeah, I think it's weird.
Let's have a final clue.
I am the 5th female driver to have competed in Formula 1.
God.
This is a smidge before my time, so I'm not much use here.
Oh God. The only thing I can think is Davina Galizia. Who
Go with that then.
are you, Davina Galizia?
I'm not Davina Galizia.
Who are you?
I am Giovanna Amati.
I've forgotten her. Bloody hell! That was a tough one tonight.
I gotta say to Nick Johnston, I think was the first one I saw coming in with it. Patrick Daly said he knew who it was, and then confirmed Nick's answer. I think they were the first two to come in with it on the YouTube comments. A couple more people came in with it afterwards as well, so I can give the point to the YouTubers, but then they have the benefit of having Google on a separate window if they wanted it.
And to anyone that's commented on YouTube saying I was totally looking at the comments, you can prove that I wasn't because I didn't actually get it right.
Yeah. The story goes that her parents were very well known in Italy. Her father owned almost every single cinema in Italy, and her mother was an actress. An actress in Italy as well. They she was kidnapped from outside one of the cinemas, or sat in a car, age 16, and was held captive for ransom of I think what would essentially be today about $2 million.
Yeah.
And the police froze her parents' assets and said, "You're not allowed to pay the ransom. You can't pay the ransom. We know you can afford it, but we're freezing your assets." So the original Star Wars movie was being shown at the time, and what Mr. Amati did was he siphoned funds from his cinemas that were showing it into a separate bank account in order to pay half the ransom. He managed to talk them down to half the ransom, and got her released. And in order to catch the people who got her, they got to get in contact with them again. And when her and her captor met again, because he claimed that he was falling in love with her, the police turned up and she begged the police not to send them to jail.
That is one hell of a story.
Yeah.
She then ended up going to motorsport school with Elio De Angelis, who she went to school with. Went up through various formula, was actually all right. Got into a relationship with Flavio Briatore. Ended up getting the seat at Brabham, but her money never came through, and she was 9 seconds off the pace in all 3 qualifying sessions that she did. Nigel Mansell qualified on pole in all 3 races. She was 9 seconds slower in all 3 qualifying sessions before.
That is worse than the Manners at their worst.
Yeah.
Before the team realised that her money wasn't going to come through, and hired Damon Hill to take her place, and it took him 5 races before he even qualified for a race.
Yeah, I do remember that Damon Hill replaced one of the few women drivers in F1.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember her name, that's why I thought it was Davina Galizia, who I think was also a skier.
I think she was an Olympic skier, Davina Galizia. I think she was British as well.
Mm.
So she was part of the Winter Olympics team at some point during the 80s, I think.
Yeah, but the British Winter Olympics team in the 80s let Eddie the Eagle in.
That's correct. Yeah.
It's not a mark of good.
I hope I did you proudly. I hope that wasn't too bad.
I can't see the comments because I've got the mailbag up. I'll just see if he's said anything. Nothing repeatable.
Nothing unusual from him then.
No, at least on this one I don't have to beep anything out. Shall we move on to the mailbag?
Let's
do that.
Had a few things through Facebook comments and messages and a couple of emails as well. Steve McGuinness, another listener in Onken. We're big in Onken.
Oh right, okay. So just over the road there.
Just
We
over
can
the road.
see
Well,
on
For
tonight.
anyone
Yeah.
who's watching on the YouTube feed, you can see the lights behind us. That's the town of Douglas with Onken just in the far distance.
Talking of Onken, I've got to say, going back to Formula League, big shout out to Ryan Neal, who came second out of 3 in the Onken Championship between the 3 drivers from that village.
Excellent.
Lee was first,
All right, fair enough.
and Twig was third.
And last.
And last of all. Just had to get that one in.
Anyway,
if you
yes.
listen.
Sorry. So
Right.
Steve McGuinness, what did you say?
Steve McGuinness. He doesn't ask a question about 3 legs fourth down, which is another podcast that he's part of.
Okay.
But what he says is it good for the sport that smaller teams use older, less powerful versions of the big team's engines, which, coupled with inexperienced drivers, increases the potential for crashes with faster cars? No,
I think he's got a suggestion in the question as to what he thinks the answer might be.
yeah. No, it's bloody
No.
stupid. It's absolutely pointless.
It is. It's not. It's the teams are supposed to have the same engines, aren't they? As a supplier, unless they're using the year-old engines.
Yeah, because at one point the regulation said that every engine must be of that year's spec.
Yeah.
And that got quietly swept under the carpet.
I will say I'd much rather see Sauber on the grid using a last year's Ferrari engine than Sauber not on the grid.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'd much rather have seen Manor on the grid this year using last year's Mercedes engine, for example, than not at all. But it wasn't to be. We know Lee has very different opinions to that, but that's just the way I feel about
Different opinions to us or to the rest of humanity.
it. Rest of humanity, mostly.
So yeah, it's wrong.
It is.
Sometimes unavoidable, but with Sauber this year, it was their own choice.
For budget cuts, though, wasn't it?
No, they said that they were that confident that they could do they could do with the aero enough to make last year's engine worthwhile. So why bother spending the extra money on this year's engine when they could put it to better aero development?
That's not gone well, has it?
I suspect that's a bit of spin and PR.
Yeah, it's
possibly.
And let's face it, as we know, Sauber aren't very good at
What's
doing
that constructive lying from the team that has a lawyer as the head of operations?
That would be the one.
Yeah.
Got a question from Hunter Reeve. Do you think there's a real
Hunter Reeve?
Yeah.
I think you might take the prize for the best name so far.
It is a cracking name. Do you think there's a real possibility of a New Jersey Grand Prix now that Liberty's taken over? And will there be more races in the US as well?
Sky were interviewing Sean Bratches over the weekend, and they specifically asked about a New York race.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying enough attention to.
Well, he said that he
remember
had
what
been approached by, I think he said around 30 different circuits who were all keen to get involved, and that he was talking to lots of different people. I don't think he named too many names, but certainly more races in the US you would expect, wouldn't you, now?
Yeah, perhaps
Yeah.
2 or 3 races in the US in a season. We know the Turkish GP has a contract signed, the Istanbul Park, for, is it 2018 onwards?
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds right.
But also France has a contract for 2018 as well. So that would take up, with all the circuits that have contracts for next year, would take it up to 22.
The
I think
Hockenheim still
New
have
Jersey
a-
still has a contract. Hockenheim will do.
Hockenheim.
I think
Well,
Korea still has a contract.
This is what I'm about to say. The contract thing doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a race there.
Yeah.
We've seen that before, especially in the Bernie era. You've got a contract to hold a race there. You have to adhere to an awful lot of conditions before you hold the race at that circuit, and there's a confirmed date and an event actually there. So the New Jersey thing was. Did they actually send Sebastian Vettel around that circuit
That
in a Red
sounds
Bull
familiar.
at like super slow speeds?
He was going like over a bridge and
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah, it with the backdrop of Manhattan Island
Yeah.
behind, it would have been a fantastic race to watch. You know,
They like doing that in the US because
Visually, I mean.
they sent Red Bull sent David Coulthard round Circuit of the Americas before they laid the tarmac, so he
Yeah.
was driving a Red
Off-road.
Bull off-roading.
yeah, I remember that as well. Circuit of the Americas is a wonderful circuit, and I hope they don't get rid of that. You know, I hope they don't sacrifice Circuit of the Americas for Watkins Glen, for example.
Yeah.
I know Watkins Glen has recently been ratified by the FIA again to hold FIA events. So whether that's Formula One or something else, we'll see.
I think they hold IndyCar at Watkins Glen, don't they? And am I right in thinking that the Formula One contract specifies that IndyCar can't be held at Formula One circuits?
Well, there's a question over Long Beach at the moment as well, whether Long Beach might not be able to hold IndyCar races past, is it next year? So one of the I can't remember who it was, one of the big sports anchors in America said that perhaps Long Beach should look at getting Formula One interested if IndyCar don't want to go back there.
Long Beach would be a crap circuit for Formula One.
It's just a long straight, isn't it, with a corner at each end.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, got to admit, I'm not a fan of the IndyCar races that I've seen there. It's it just doesn't work, and I don't think the infrastructure's there as well, because IndyCar you have open pits. It would take a hell of a lot of building to put a proper pit complex in there, up to F1 standard, because you've got to have the indoor garages. With IndyCar, obviously the garages are well away from the track,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's on an oval or a proper circuit. I probably just offended people by saying proper circuit again. And, you know, it's just not there at Long Beach. And if you look at the map of the circuit, there doesn't seem to be a great deal of room to build one there. Sean Kelly had come up with a plan for a circuit of San Diego, even down to where the pit complex could be built.
I imagine he's one of the 30 or so people who've been in touch with with Sean Bratches there.
Wouldn't,
Yeah, quite possibly.
wouldn't surprise. Obviously, he does spend a lot of time in San Diego, so he does know the city fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could work there.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no reason why purpose-built circuits couldn't happen again as well in the US. I mean, it works very well with the Circuit of the Americas. There's no reason why it has to be a street circuit or right in the middle of a city. But I'm thinking now, like sort of Arizona desert, something like that, and New Mexico, maybe something in the northern states, because I think a lot of people outside the US and Canada don't really realise the size difference between the race in Montreal and the race in Texas. Texas is the circuit of the Americas, or has the circuit of the Americas, but it's not really accessible from everywhere in North America. So
not massively, because I mean we've had a few American listeners getting in touch saying that it's cheaper to get to Montreal than it is to get to Austin.
Yeah.
So and that's just down to geography.
So geographically, I'm sure Formula One group will look at where the best is to hold a race. It looks like Malaysia is dropping off the calendar for next year, doesn't it? And Malaysia and Singapore, like 70 miles apart?
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe this is the new strategy for this bunch of people running Formula One.
I think, was it not Malaysia's choice to drop
think they
out?
chose
I'm sure
not
it's.
to.
I'm
I
sure
think
it's
both
a
Malaysia
bit of
and
both,
Singapore announced that they were dropping out, didn't they?
But Malaysia are definitely dropping out.
I think Singapore is confirmed for next year.
Yeah, Malaysia is
Yeah,
not.
Malaysia is definitely off. Singapore haven't actually said whether they're definitely stopping or not. There was just all the stories that they want to.
Is that a bartering tactic though? Are they just trying to get a deal by threatening to drop out?
I think it might be because it was within about 2 days of the takeover finishing.
Yeah.
So it could be we want to do this, but we really can't afford it at these Bernie prices.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Bernie was in Bahrain, and Bernie was also in Russia as well. Don't know if anybody spotted him
Yes.
talking
He was.
to President Putin, but he it would be, in my eyes at least, it would be beneficial for Formula One group to take Bernie's advice, or at least have Bernie sit in on meetings where they're trying to negotiate new deals with existing circuits. Because Bernie has built up the rapport and the relationship. He perhaps wasn't the most popular of Formula One dictators, if you will, but he built up that relationship, that rapport, and it's because of him that Formula One is at the circuits that it's at the moment. We're yet to see Formula One group run by Chase Carey, Sean Bratches, and
Ross
Brawn. The three wise men, as they're affectionately called at the moment.
Oh, there were the Three Musketeers at the weekend, I think.
Three Musketeers. We're yet to see them announce a new circuit under their leadership.
I'm sure that'll come soon, but I mean, this year it's just getting bedded in.
Of course, yeah.
You know, working out. Yeah, we've bought this. Now, what do we do with it? Changes appear to be coming fairly quickly under the new leadership. The first thing was obviously the relaxed social media rules.
Yeah, and the graphics have changed as well. The graphics, at the end of a race, rather than just saying race winner, this person, it's Valtteri Bottas' first race win.
Yeah.
I think when Lewis won, it was Lewis Hamilton's 50-something race win. It was.
And of course in China, Darth Vader, Sith Lord.
Of course. Yes.
Just got an apology to make about Formula E before we finish. I did miss a time because I didn't actually see that it was on the photo. Chris Rowden, yep, you are in there, and I'll put you in the standings, and you will get the points as well. But everyone who we've read out will get their points too. We'll just have to give double points for one position.
Ooh.
I made a mistake.
Oh dear.
I've had flu. It's not been the easiest week. I've had real flu, not man flu.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking by it. I think that's probably about it for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sean, for standing in for Lee.
Thank you for having me.
You have been a hell of a lot less controversial, and you've caused us a lot less work when it comes to censoring things.
And editing the
podcast. Because I won't have to beep anything out.
Thank you very
I'm sure
much.
that probably means he's saved up double for next week, though, so sorry about that.
We'll get the beep machine on standby. Thanks for everyone that's joined us on YouTube. Really do like seeing the comments coming through all the time that we're recording. We've tried to include as many of them in the show as possible.
Absolutely. And if you feel like you're missing out a little bit listening to the podcast and not watching us on YouTube, well, sorry for that, but you can, of course, log on to YouTube when we record on Monday nights at 9 o'clock. However,
next week, we're going to be doing the YouTube stream early on Sunday afternoon. because
Because that's when we're going to be recording the podcast.
that's when we're going to be recording the podcast. Because two of us in this room, and you have to guess who, are going to see Iron Maiden next Monday night.
It's not me.
Or me.
It might be me.
So there's not going to be a live stream on Monday, but we will live stream as usual Sunday afternoon. Podcast should still be up at the normal time. Now, if you want to get in touch, we have the Facebook page. Go to facebook.com and it's facebook.com/3legs4wheels. You can tweet us at 3legs4wheels or at
Flood21.
Danbert?
Sean. Do you want listeners tweeting you as well about
You
F1?
can tweet me if you want. Yeah, I am at Sean Cowper.
And I am Pablo100, and of course at A Total Shunt.
If you want to,
If you want
to tweet the saviour of Formula One, who's just gone to bed.
Yes.
Also,
Lee
definitely
Stevens.
tweet him and get his
Yes,
notifications
In
going,
fact,
wake him up.
Start tweeting him now if you're watching on YouTube. Just if he hasn't put his phone on silent, he's screwed.
Yeah.
If you want to drop us an email, you can get in touch with us 3legs4wheels@gmail.com. And if you want the extra show and the other rewards as well, and we'd like to thank everyone who has signed up recently, you can pledge on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, there's details of the extra show that we do on there, because we do the half-hour podcast with various stuff and gubbins. There's some exclusive t-shirts available, and because I'm going to have to buy some new t-shirt print because I spilt Coke on the t-shirt transfer paper and it has soaked through some of them. So that's why they're delayed. I really am sorry. And there's postcards, extra content, everything like that. And our Patreon listeners are always the first to know when anything big's happening with us, when big things do happen.
Absolutely.
Which they might do one day. But thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us this week, and we'll see you next week.
Excellent. See you guys
See
and
you next
girls
week.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.